In this video, I'm going to walk you through the process that I use for making these very simple cabbed or flat-backed stoned earrings. The materials that I've set aside for this project are 2 pieces of 21 gauge square in 4-inch segments, 2 pieces of 21 gauge round in 4-inch segments, 2 pieces of 22 gauge half round in 1-foot segments, and then 2 oval stones. The stones that I've selected for this project are approximately 9 by 12 millimeters. Our first step is going to be to take both of our half rounds, fold them in half and pinch the endings together, and slide my fingers down so I can find the dead center of the half round. I've bent it so that my flat side is facing in and the round side is facing out. I'm going to repeat the same process with the second piece. Next, I'm going to take the round wire and begin creating the inside of this setting for our stone to sit on. Pinching approximately in the middle, I'm going to begin to form this wire to the shape of the stone. If we flip it over to the back, the wire should sit just along the outside edge of the stone. One of my favorite tools for forming this shape are these half-round pliers. Once we have our wire shaped to sit approximately along the outside of the shape of the stone, we can set this one off to the side and repeat the same process for our second stone. Now that we have the insides to both of our settings complete, I can take one of our half rounds and one of our squares and start working on connecting the prongs to our setting. To begin this process, I'm going to pinch my square approximately in the center. I'm going to slide my half round over the top, where I can use it to wrap around both sides of these two wires together. Once I've connected them several times together, I can go ahead and adjust to make sure that everything sits properly. My square wire shifted slightly to the left, so I was no longer in the center of the wire. So I can slide that back through the coil to make sure that I have equal working distance on both sides, and I can make sure that my coil is directly across from where the join of our two rounds will be at the other side. Once I'm satisfied with where it sits, I can go ahead and pinch with my pliers to flatten that coil. They'll help start to force these wires to sit nicely next to each other. I'm going to go ahead and wrap one more time around each side. As I do, I'm making my square form to the outside of our round so that this coil will be nice and tight. I'm going to start on our right side here, taking our square wire in my pliers just after where the coil ends, bending it 90 degrees straight up, and then I'm using the width of my pliers to judge the distance that I need for the prong, folding it straight up and then back down on itself, or I can carefully flatten the wire parallel to itself. Flattening this wire from several directions will help make sure that these wires sit as flush to each other as possible. Once I have my prong prepared, I can go ahead and pinch it and bend my wire back out to the side so that it will again be able to run parallel along the outside of our round wire. I'm going to take my half round and begin coiling these two wires back together, just skipping past where the prong exits the coil and pulling these two together tightly as I coil. At this point, I want to stop and point out that one of the disadvantages for using round wire at any point in this process is that since it doesn't have a hard edge, all of these elements are going to want to shift and wiggle. I just need to be careful and make sure that my center point here at the bottom stays directly across from where our two rounds will connect. Otherwise, my prongs won't be centered. I went ahead and wrapped 10 times around both the square and the round. From this point, I'm ready to go ahead and create our second prong on the right side. Repeating the same process, just pinching with my pliers and bending it straight up. And then without moving my pliers, I can bring that wire down around parallel to itself, and then carefully flatten from several directions in order to make sure that they sit nice and flush next to each other before getting ready to reattach the prong to our round wire. In almost every video, I'm asked if it's possible to repeat the same processes with only round wire. And while it's definitely possible, using square makes it much easier for me to be able to create crisp prongs for these settings. From here, I'm going to go ahead and reattach our prong. Just going to wrap it twice with our half round to the round. Once I have 2 full rotations of the half round around both of my wires, I'm going to go ahead and trim that ending short and pinch it down to the surface of the setting. From here, I'm ready to go ahead, switch to the left side, and start making the prongs from there. I'm going to go ahead and pinch up and then back down to create our prong, and then flatten it from several directions to make sure that that square wire sits nice and flush next to itself. Before going ahead and continuing to connect it to our round wire. I'm going to go ahead and wrap around 10 times before creating our next prong. Once we have all 4 prongs connected back to our core round wire, you can begin to see how the stone will sit in its setting. I'm going to take that half round wire, bring it across the top of all 4 of my remaining wires, coiling those all together 2 full times, bringing it back to the front and trimming it short. I'm going to pause here and repeat the same process, connecting my prongs to my round wire for our other earring, and then I'll go ahead and walk you through the process of creating the ear wire and cutting off our remaining wires. I went ahead and finished our second earring up till this point. This is where the process will differ slightly. Instead of trimming my right wire short, I'm going to go ahead and trim the left wire short, pinching it flat so that it sits nicely, and then connecting all 4 wires together using the rightmost half-round wire. I'm going to start with my right earring here. I'm going to take the square on the right side, just past where our bundle of half rounds connects it, and bend it directly towards the back. Then taking the left, I'm going to bend it directly towards the front. I'm going to bring that one across the front, and this one across the back. I'm going to bring this wire from the front to sit just below where our square comes across. I'm going to repeat the same process with this square coming over the top. Then I'm going to take my left round wire, bend it straight down through the setting. I want to make sure that I flatten that so that it'll sit nicely. From here, I can actually pinch it, cut it short, so it'll sit just above the stone. Like so. I'm going to repeat the inverse process on the other side here. Now that we have all the loose wires connected, I'm going to go ahead and bend my prongs slightly out from the center. Once I've bent them all slightly outwards, I'm going to take my pliers and pinch them just past where you can see the fold in the wire going back in on itself, and put a slight bend back in towards the center. I'm going to go ahead and slide my stone down into our setting, where it should sit fairly nicely, even without our prongs tightened yet. To tighten the prongs, I'm going to work from opposite ends. So I'm starting here in the top left, and then I'm going to jump down to the bottom right, just pinching very gently to force the prong down onto the stone. I'm using my thumb to hold the stone into place so it doesn't shift around as I'm setting it. Once you've secured all of the prongs to the stone, it should be very stable. It shouldn't wiggle at all. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process for the other stone. Now that we have both of our stones set, I'm going to take my round pliers, bending our last piece of 20 gauge round over the top of my closed round pliers. And then I'm going to pinch just after the pliers there to begin creating the shape of the ear wire. Once you have a shape that you like, you can go ahead and trim some of that excess off. Just make sure to go ahead and file and round off that point so it doesn't cause the wearer any pain. Repeat the same process here. And here we have a finished set of very simple cabochon earrings. A special thank you goes out to all the names on your screen for supporting this channel through Patreon. What I'm doing would not be possible without your support. If you're interested in helping support the channel, follow the link in the description below this video. If you found this video helpful, leave me a like on the video. This helps me out a lot with the visibility of my videos in YouTube's algorithms. To be the first to know when I upload new content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when new videos are available. Thank you for watching, and happy wrapping.